It's Proverbs 24, verse 33. Yet a little slumber, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands in sleep. I don't know anybody that does that, but that's what he said. So shall thy poverty come on as one that travaileth, like a woman having a baby, and thy want as an armed man.
Exactly.
So not only do you have to work, folks, you got to work hard. Solomon said, just a little bit of sleep, just a little bit of laying around, and you're going to be in poverty. So a recipe for poverty is laziness. It was in that time, and it is in this time.
It still is, yes.
Yes, go right ahead.
Well, my dad told me one time, he said, if you don't work while you're on the other man's payroll, then that's the same as stealing.
Right. I agree. You're taking a wage for something you didn't do. I would totally agree. And a wise person once told me, of course, I'll get to the saying in a minute. One thing I like to do as a child, I'll confess to you, I've always been a little strange. You love me, and that's great. I like to do science experiments when I was a child in the bathroom, okay? What I would do is I would get a bottle or a cup, and I would take every bottle of perfume, every bottle of cologne, peroxide, ammonia, everything I could find in that bathroom, and I would mix it into my little cauldron, and I would see what it would do. Would it bubble up? Would it make a sound? Would it do nothing, okay? And directly it would start putting out some kind of gas, and I would run screaming from the bathroom, okay? Because I was scared that I was going to kill myself and everybody else, set the house on fire, etc., etc. And I can still remember my grandmother coming to me and shaking her head and saying, Wayne, you know that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And that is absolutely true. If we are idle too much, Satan will seize that opportunity. Her words were wise. They are good words.
That's right.
So we work and we work hard, right? Another wise person once told me anything that is worth having is worth working for. I believe that too. If we work for something, we take more pride in it. We're going to take better care of it. We're going to be better people for working. And
I'm a child.
go right ahead.
I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. The early 60s, I thought I was grown.
Yeah.
We had a song back then, I don't remember how the song went, but it's one of those Shawna Na 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 songs. Right. And it said, Shawna Na Na Na, get a job. and it was kind of a good song. You know,
yeah.
Go get a job.
Right.
They're
right.
There. You get it.
And maybe it's just me, and I don't want to look down on young people, but I see it slipping away as we go forward. I see that slipping away a little bit. So I just want to remind everybody, and not any person in particular, but remind all of God's people today that it is still very important that we're productive. And, job security, if you want job security, be a go-to person on your job. Any of you guys know that? If you show responsibility for something, if you show ownership, you're going to have some job security. It's all about being that go-to person. So let it not be said of us as employees that we are slothful, that we just do enough to get by, that we're dead weight. Let's be committed to our jobs. That's all important. And not to get political on you, but we got a party out there that says they're the party of the working people. So I guess we're part of that party. I don't know. But we are, at NTAC, we are very much for working people. It is very much an important part of what we teach and what we believe. Now, the Lord spoke to me very clearly this week. He didn't speak to me audibly, and I'm not going to lock myself up in a prayer tower until you contribute money. It's none of that. But the Lord did speak to my spirit this week, and He told me 3 very simple words. He never gives me these divine great revelations like some people get. I'm jealous, but I don't get that. But what I did get was 3 simple words. Get a life.
Oh, man.
That is exactly what I got from the Lord.
Oh, man.
See, the Lord and I have worked out that we love each other, so He doesn't often pat me on the head. He usually would just tell me. He knows I love Him, and I know and He loves me. So He'll just tell me the truth. He'll just cut to the chase and tell me what I need to know. I'm very blessed today to have my mother and my godmother here. And I know my mother back there, her favorite verse is, of course, 1 Timothy 3:16. That, behold, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifested in the flesh. But I know my godmother's favorite verse too, and we're going to talk about it a little bit because it goes with the lesson today. And that's Hebrews 12:1. And I'm reading this from a newer translation. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely,
Yes.
And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And we've talked about sin, right? We beat you to death with sin because the Lord's put it on us to talk about. Me and Brother Gary both. We've talked about sin. But that verse there doesn't only talk about sin. Flip back to verse 1, Kevin, if you would. Looking at, wherefore seeing we are also compassed about, let us lay aside every weight and the sin. So there are weights that are not sin. And when we get too involved in our work or in anything else, it can become a weight that impedes us from running the race. It's not necessarily a sin.
That's right.
Overproductivity can hurt your walk with God. But it's not necessarily a sin. It's about not being focused on the right things. So we're not going to talk to you about that little dog I have that is in the garage that wants in the house and you have to keep kicking him out. That's sin. When you think of sin in your life, think of my little dog. I have several little dogs. You guys know that. One not so little. But think of that little dog that's always trying to get in. You'll kick him out today, but guess what? You're going to have to kick him out tomorrow. Just keep that in mind when it comes to sin. Because sin will come back to us. But we're going to talk about every weight. Very important that we're talking about every weight. The Scripture says that Jesus was not distracted by details. See, it says that he endured the cross, despising or not really looking down on the shame, and he pressed through to the prize. He had something on his mind, and he was able to do it. I believe that.
Yes.
He pressed through the things that he had to go through in this life, just like you and I will have to press through some things to get to our goal. But let us not be distracted by details, because Martha was. Martha was distracted by details. In Luke chapter 10, verse 38, we're going to look at old Martha. And old Martha is just like old Wayne, or old many of us. We can feel a lot of Martha. You can identify with Martha. If you cannot identify with Martha at all, you probably really are lazy. Because we can all identify with Martha. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. Now it came to pass as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. Okay, so Martha was doing the right thing. Martha received him into her house, right? I received the Lord into this house on I believe the 21st day of October of 2009. I received the Lord into this house. That's great. That's what Martha did. In symbolism here, Martha received the Lord into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. Okay, so we got Martha and Mary. Everybody with us? But Martha was cumbered about with much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but only one thing is needful.
Yes.
And Mary hath chosen the good part which shall not be taken from her. You see, can't you identify with Martha? Let me tell you something about me and my wife. We have an on and off switch, and there's no medium switch, okay? We have no slow. We're either off or we're on. And God help either one of us if one of us is on and one of us is off, because that's going to cause conflict. I'm going to be doing something around the house and saying, Kim, why don't you help me? And then Kim's going to be up, and I'm going to be sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing, and Kim's going to say, Wayne, that garage really needs some attention. We do not tolerate that difference in our personalities very well. And you see the same conflict there with Mary and Martha. If you look at a newer translation of this verse, it will say cumbered about means distracted. She was distracted with many things, worried and upset. I love cumbered about because you know what cumbered about makes me think of in my mind? Somebody with a whole lot